And I'm also going to record our program this evening. So I just wanted to welcome everybody. My name is Cheryl Rigger, and I work at the Dover Public Library, and my job is the adult programming specialist. So I specialize in making adult programs that people will be interested in attending, like you guys tonight. And I just thank you all for coming. And if you have a great idea of something that you think people would be interested in, please let me know, because I will track people down. If I don't know somebody, I will find a way to find a speaker. And actually, I'll just say that, you can always visit the library website, or the library has posters in the hallway, or you can go online and see our calendar and see what's coming up. But I think, here in July, I've got, I think, 3 great programs. One is tonight's program, which is on Zoom. And on Monday night, Joe Miller from Sugar Creek is going to talk about his trip from Sugar Creek, Ohio, with 1,800 cows on a ship called the Holstein Express to Morocco. And that's going to be in person at the library. And then next week as well, we're going to have a drum circle on Dice Hill. So we'll see. It's kind of varied. So whatever interests you, always get on the library website and check it out and see what we have coming. So as I said, I'm going to record tonight's program so that in case people missed it for some reason, I'll put it up on the library website for a month, and people can access it there and see what they missed and in tonight's program. So at this point in time, I want to introduce our speaker, who is Javier Fernandez. And Javier is a former student of mine at Dover High School, as well as his wife, Megan. And they are both recent college graduates, and more importantly, they are newlyweds. So they're taking time out of their busy schedule to join us and tell us about this wonderful trip that Javier did with his uncle and his cousin when he was a sophomore in high school. So it's been a while, but I'm sure the memories are still very fresh. So Javier, it is your show, so you can talk and share your screen as you feel free to do so. Okay?
All right, fantastic. I will share that now. All right, so can you guys see that then?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As Cheryl said, my name is Javier Fernandez, and I'm here to talk a little bit about my experience with El Camino. In this presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the Camino, the kind of equipment that you would need to do it, and just my experiences walking on it as well. But before we go any further, I'll give you a little more background about me. Right now, I'm a 22-year-old. I just graduated from Miami University this year, as Ms. Rieger said. As Ms. Rieger also said, I did this trip when I was a sophomore in high school back in 2014, actually 2015. And at this point, I had never really been out of the country. So it was definitely a culture shock to just like leave the area and go off to Spain for like my very first trip out of the country, and like how they lived and what they ate and everything kind of deal. And then I had some experience with backpacking and hiking from Boy Scouts, but it wasn't exactly like a huge amount of experience needed to like actually walk the Camino. But so I was kind of just going in from with that experience. And at the time, I had about an intermediate proficiency with Spanish. I could like write it, read it, and like understand it pretty well. But there were a ton of words that I didn't really understand. So that's by no means a hindrance for walking this trail at all. And then now I'll tell you a little bit more about the trail itself. The Camino de Santiago is a 500-mile trek through the northern country of Spain, and it ranges all the way from the Spanish and French border in the Pyrenees Mountains to on the right side of the screen, all the way to Santiago de Compostela, which is in the province of Galicia, or in the little nub of Spain up there. So, and it goes through all these big cities that you see on your screen right now. So it's definitely a very long journey. And now I'll tell you a little bit about the history of it. So the whole purpose of the Camino starts with Saint James. Saint James was one of the 12 disciples of Jesus, and when God sent out the disciples to across the known world to spread the gospel, it is said that Saint James went to the Iberian Peninsula to spread the gospel, and like at the time there. And it wouldn't be. It is also said that centuries later, a Galician farmer discovered the remains of the apostle in his farm. So whenever news of this reached the king of the time, King Alfonso II, he commissioned the building of a small chapel on that farm to commemorate the apostle. So as pilgrims from across Spain and Europe began to visit this chapel, and more of them visited it year after year, King Alfonso II commissioned that this chapel be made into a full-scale cathedral, which is still in Santiago today. So as early pilgrims would travel year after year to this now cathedral, they actually wouldn't take the main route of the Camino de Santiago, which is the Camino Frances. They would actually take two northern routes that were called the Camino del Norte and Camino Primitivo, which are actually caminos you can walk as well. So, but the main route, Camino Frances, wouldn't be established until much later as a way to like push back Moorish influence in Spain and to reestablish Catholic influence across the country. But as time moved on, the Camino would peak in like, what do you call it? Popularity in around the 12th and 13th centuries, and then would steadily decline due to the wars that were fought in Europe at the time. And it wouldn't be until the 1980s when people who love the Camino, like Father Elias Valina, would like promote it a bunch and like revive it essentially. Okay, so now the equipment that I used during my trip through Spain was it? For this, I'd like to make the note that it's important that you don't want to pack too heavy because typically when you're doing this trek, you walk for about 8 hours or like the whole day kind of deal. So it's usually advised that you only carry a maximum of about 25 pounds on your back, because after a couple hours, that 25 pounds will feel about like 80 or 100 pounds, just continuously walking with it. So with this in mind, the supplies that I took to Spain were a lightweight backpacking bag, a thin sleeping bag, and an inflatable pillow so I could like sleep wherever I needed to. I only packed 3 pairs of clothing, and each pair I would wear about twice, so we didn't have to do laundry so many times. And then I took a 1 liter water bladder, so because obviously you're walking for so long, you're going to need a lot of water to like sustain you and everything like that. And then I also packed a heavy duty pair of tennis shoes as well as a good hat, because obviously you need shoes to help you make it at the very least most of the way to Santiago, as well as a good hat to prevent the sun from like burning your face or your neck. And then lastly, I also packed a portable battery and charger adapter so I could take the beautiful pictures you're about to see here. Okay, and then without further ado, I'll talk a little bit about my experiences now with the Camino itself. So the first 2 provinces that the Camino starts in Spain are provinces called Navarra and La Rioja. And these provinces, just so you can kind of get a bearing on where they're at, they're closer to the border between Spain and France, as you can see at the top here of a map of Spain. And so yeah. The starting city that we started at was a city called Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port. And as you can see, there were the 2 top pictures up here. This is the traditional city that pilgrims will start at. As you can see, the starting gate there is, like, as I said, where most of the pilgrims who are taking the journey on the Camino Frances will start. And after we started our journey together, the first day of hiking, you can see from the 3 photos on the bottom here, it was absolutely gorgeous. Like the scenery, you could see for miles and miles, just mountains and beautiful like farmland and trees everywhere. But the only problem is the first part of the Camino is incredibly tough to walk as well, because it's through the mountains. So even though you're getting this beautiful scenery and beautiful like landscape and everything, you're also walking up really tall mountains as well. And then here's some more pictures. The first 2 up here were actually the first hostel we stayed at, and it was about I believe 5 miles into our journey. We were already very, very tired from walking up the mountains and everything, so we decided to stay here for the night. And I'm very glad we did, because they had phenomenal food. Everything was homemade. Everything was brought up from the town, like the ingredients to like prepare everything. And it was a wonderful spot to just like sit and talk to the other peregrinos that had started the day as well. And we're having trouble walking up the mountains. So yeah, it was very cool. Oh, and here they also have a very large book that whoever stays at this hostel, they have you write your name on the book. So if you ever want to come back, like 5 years, 10 years, however much later, you can actually find your name in the book and when you walk the Camino here and stayed here. So it's very cool. But then after we were done staying at this hotel, we continued our journey forward. And as you can see from these pictures here, it was absolutely splendid to see like all the sheep grazing on the hillside or on the mountainsides, and being able to see even more of a beautiful view at the very top of the mountain, as you can see in the middle picture here. And then our last picture down here, I was very happy to get to the 790-kilometer mark, because even though the Camino was about 805 kilometers long, we only went about 15 kilometers. So, but that 15 kilometers, like I said, was through very high and steep mountains. So it was a relief to see a sign showing our progress that we were making. But anyway, as we got closer and closer to the city of Pamplona, we actually got to the wonderful chance to stay at a 5-star chef's hostel. And what hostels are basically, they're kind of like Airbnbs, where a random person will like rent out their house for the peregrinos or the pilgrims to like live in, and they'll sometimes cook for you and let you like use their pool, as you can see in the top corner here. But like I said, we were very lucky to get the hostel of a 5-star chef, because he prepared us like one of the best dinners I've ever had in my life. It was filled with like Spanish paella, mariscos, and was a bunch of like different traditional Spanish foods as well. And I unfortunately didn't take any pictures of it because I was too busy scarfing it down from the hard days hiking. But anyways, that was absolutely amazing to have that experience there. But then, as we were actually entering Pamplona, these are the pictures that we took as we were entering. So, as you can see from the second picture up here, Pamplona is completely surrounded by a very large stone wall with like little battlements on them as well. So it was very interesting to just see like a giant wall like come out of the as you were like walking out of the forest towards the city, because it was like nothing I'd have ever seen before. And then in the bottom picture here, this was actually the front gate into the city. And then once we got into the city, we explored the town square that it was completely built around, as well as the main cathedral of the city. And in addition to that, as we were coming in, we actually found out that we were a week before the running of the bulls, which is a very famous Pamplonan like festival where they just let bulls go free and people run away from them. But yeah, it was kind of a bummer to learn that we were so close to it, yet we had to keep going on our journey. And the last thing I wanted to talk about Pamplona was it was a huge culture shock to see how the people were actually living here in Pamplona, because as you can see in the very last picture, there's like tons of people just walking around, like getting their dinner kind of deal and like looking for entertainment and stuff. But there wasn't that many cars. Like nobody was really using their car to drive around like you would in town here at Dover or anything like that. They were just all like in the public square, just enjoying like the day and walking around and everything. So that was definitely very cool to see. All right, and then the next part of our journey, we left from Pamplona, and then we were walking towards the city of Logroño, and these are the pictures that we took along the way. As you can see from in the second picture here, this is actually a very famous pilgrim monument that they have on that section of the El Camino, where like if you were to search El Camino on the web on Google, this monument would probably be one of the first things that you would see. So it was very cool to like walk past that and be like, oh, I've seen that before. So yeah. And then as we continued walking, we passed churches, we passed little towns and everything like that. And again, we decided to stay at another hostel. And as you can see in the bottom picture here, we actually shared that hostel with two teachers who had decided. The two teachers were the ladies in pink and the lady in green. And they were telling us that they decided that they wanted to do the El Camino because was it? They had read so much about it and heard so much about it that finally they're like, all right, let's do it. So then they both ended up coming to the Camino. And then after that day at the hotel, we actually walked with them for about a week or so, just walking along the trails with them, just talking with them and everything like that. So it was fantastic. And to have like heard everything that they had gone through and everything like that. But anyways, as we continued forward, we got cool pictures of like us going into towns, as you can see in the middle picture there, and another cool picture of just us walking through the alleyways of like a big city as well. But anyways, after we passed Logroño, we entered into the region of La Roya. And although this region was somewhat a smaller region, it marked the last time we would see lush green forests and lush green fields, as you can see in these pictures here. It was like starting to dwindle out and everything like that. So it was definitely interesting to see like a new environment kind of deal open up before me. And just like really cool to see all the cities out in the distance as we were walking towards it and everything like that. So it was very cool. And another thing I wanted to talk about was in the second picture with the yellow arrow. This is actually how they're like every mile you walk of the Camino, you'll come across another marker, like a yellow marker. And that's basically there to just tell you that you're going on the right way, that you're going on like the Camino Frances kind of deal. So even though we used our maps to make sure we were like going the right direction, and we basically double checked to make sure that we were going the right way, it was nice to have little yellow arrows pointing us in the right direction, so we didn't have to like continuously stop every like 5 minutes to make sure we were on the right road kind of deal. And then in addition to that, in the picture at the very last picture of the sunrise, this was around the time that we started to figure out that it actually makes the experience a whole lot easier if you wake up at around like 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. and begin your walk from that time, because then you would end up finishing at around noon or 1 p.m. right before the hottest part of the day. And we're starting to figure out that at around 2 or 3 p.m., the temperatures could get as high as like 110 or 115 in this region. So it was pretty crazy. So we wanted to keep out of that as much as possible. Okay, and then once we walked through the province of La Rioja, we came into the province of Castilla y León. And as you can see from the picture again, this is actually one of the biggest provinces that in Spain. So this is where we spent most of our Camino journey in, basically, just so you can see it there. Okay, and then as the big city that we were walking to on this point of the journey was Burgos. And the top 3 pictures here are the pictures that we took on our way going to Burgos. And as you can see, there's the beautiful sunrise on this giant mountain that we had to climb. And then when we got to the top of that mountain, we actually took the pictures of the cross as well as this sign here, which in English reads, Desde que el peregrino termina. It basically says that it's better for the pilgrim to finish at Burgos and be able to see the beautiful mountains of Navarra and the beautiful fields as well, than to have like never come to see it at all, which was very, very moving, because we were kind of dying as we were walking up the mountains. So we're like, oh, sweet. But then these last 4 pictures here are actually us in Burgos now, like entering it. And it was actually very cool because as we were entering the main like square of the city and the main street that everything's built around, they actually planted these giant trees, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner. And it was very refreshing to be able to come from like the 100-degree weather and like walk in the shade here, because it was like instantly refreshing. And we're like, whew, thank God for that. And then in addition to that, we also passed the Human Evolution Museum, which is very interesting because Burgos actually lies very close to a site where archaeologists found the remains of what do you call it? Basically ancestors to human, and they built a whole museum for that in Burgos, which was very interesting to learn as we were walking in. And then in addition to that, as you can see in the last picture here, they have like Saint James depicted as a knight, kind of a crusader almost, pushing back the Moorish influence, which is very interesting to see because I was like, isn't Saint James more of a pacifist guy sharing the gospel? And it was kind of weird, but
You froze up for a minute. Can you still hear us? I think you froze up, Javier. Can he get reconnected? Let's see what's going on with that. Okay, but let's see. So it looks like you're muted.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I think the internet just bugged out on him.
Okay. Okay. Is he going to like, do I have to let him in again, do you think? Or not?
I think so.
Let me see. Do you think you can share from here?
Probably. Let me see if this will work. Dang. Oh, hang on, I connected.
Oh, is it good?
Yeah, give me a second.
1 moment, please.
Okay.
We're experiencing technical difficulties.
Here he is.
I didn't run out on you.
No, I didn't think you did.
You can watch him process it.
Yeah, as I log back in. Okay. So where did it cut out for you? Did it cut out for when I was like explaining the Meseta?
Yeah, even just a teeny bit before that.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind as I get back in here.
Okay. You were at the slide where Burgos and St. James as a crusader.
Oh, okay.
And that's right after you said that, it kind of, you froze.
Yeah, it kicked me out, and I was like, "Oh, what is this screen that I'm looking at right now?" I was like, "Oh, Freddie kicked me out."
Oh, great.
So yeah, okay. So I'm coming in now, and
Okay.
There we are. Okay, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. Yes.
Very good. And now I'll share my screen again.
Yep. There you go.
And then we'll go back here, and then we'll do that. Alrighty.
Perfect.
So I was here. Okay. So you guys heard everything about the statue that I was talking about?
Right.
Okay. Then I'll go to the slide. All right. So as I was saying, as we were leaving Burgos, the top left photo was the gate actually of Burgos that goes out into the Meseta. Well, as we were leaving Burgos, this marked like a change in regions where we were beginning to come into a region called the Meseta Norte. And this was actually one of the hardest parts of the Camino right here, because the main issue is it's just miles and miles of endless fields. So it makes you feel like as you're walking, you're not really going anywhere because there's like no way to tell like where you are. So you just keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. It's like almost purgatory. So it was kind of funny because as I was walking across the Meseta, I was thinking, wow, I kind of understand now why Don Quixote went mad if he had to do this in La Mancha. So just a funny little thing that I was thinking. And in addition to the miles and miles of endless fields, temperatures would rise here as well to around like 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So this was where that strategy of waking up at around 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. and then walking all the way until 12 to 1 p.m. really paid off, because we managed to get through like almost all of what we wanted to walk without having to be in like the heat of the day at all. So that was very nice. But yeah. So obviously we don't have many photos of us in La Meseta. So the photos you do see here are towards the end when we were like kind of coming up towards Leon. But the top left, except for the top left photo, the very first photo, that was somewhere in the middle of the Meseta region. And that was a very cool place because essentially what it is, it's like an oasis for pilgrims to come and like put their legs and their feet into the water there. And the water is actually like conditioned to be at around 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So like after walking in 120-degree weather for a little bit, it just felt fantastic to just lay there and put your feet in, and like very refreshing as well. So that was very cool to see. And then as we were coming up on the town of Leon, we got to see like a bunch of sunflower fields as well. So it was a nice change from the Meseta plains of like wheat and barley, because as we were walking, like every now and then when you glanced over at the sunflowers, it looked like they would have moved towards the sun, like depending on where the sun was in the sky. And we're like, oh, the plants are moving. So it was fun to joke around with that. And then in the bottom left picture here, as you get closer to Leon, more and more people have wine cellars where they keep their wine cool down in like the earth and everything like that. And you can see my cousin Nathaniel just kind of standing in there enjoying the shade. So it was cool. And then we also passed many churches and monuments to pilgrims along the way to Leon as well. But anyways, as we started to get into Leon, it was the same kind of thing with Pamplona. It was completely surrounded by this huge, like intimidating wall, which you could see like miles and miles away as in the Meseta. So it was very cool to like finally walk up and just see how big the whole thing was. And it was also a huge relief as well, because it felt like you were coming back into civilization, and there were like tons of shops, smells, and like just like civilization basically. So it was really cool. But when we were in Leon, we decided to visit the gigantic cathedral that they have there. I think it's the Cathedral to Santa Maria. I could be wrong on that, but I think that was the name. And then we also got to visit a 5-star hotel and just look around at it. We didn't stay in it at all, but that's in the bottom left picture there. And it looked absolutely stunning to just look at. And the palace as well for the royalty of Leon back in the past. That was very cool to see as well. And you could see me and my cousin Nathaniel sitting on the Leon sign, being able to like kind of hop from bar to bar, just trying the pinchos, because the pinchos were delicious in Leon as well. But anyhow, as we were leaving Leon, we actually got to see a sign that said we were only 298 kilometers away from Santiago at that point, which was like, whoo, where did all the miles go? So that was cool to see. And again, we passed through more small towns, more monuments, and took pictures along the way. And we got to sit down and talk with the people on the top right-hand corner here. I didn't really get to speak with them all that much because we only met with them one night. So my uncle decided to have dinner with them while Nathaniel and I went up to the room and just like relax kind of deal. And then that leaves the 3 pictures at the bottom. So the first picture is actually a very interesting monument, because when you're going on the Camino, some sources, like when you're looking, like researching stuff, say that for you to bring like a rock or like a little piece of land from the country you were born in, that's actually for this monument here at the bottom left. What pilgrims do is that they'll come bring their like rock and they'll leave it on this mound here. And that's kind of to show that like thousands and thousands of people over the decades have like been at this spot, and they've brought a little piece of their land to like put here kind of deal, which was very inspiring to see and like feel as I was putting my piece there as well. And then finally, the final two pictures here, this was a ton of fun. This was in the city of Ponferrada, and they're big, they have like a big castle there. And this castle has been there since like the medieval times and everything. But instead of just like leaving it as like a kind of place for tourists to come and look at, they actually every weekend during the summer will hold a play in the walls of the castle. So as you can see in the very last photo, the orchestra will be in the seating area with everybody, just like playing the music for the play. And the play itself will go on in the walls around you as you're sitting there. So you get to like look up and see people like storming the castle and people like doing like their thing up in the castle walls. So I had never experienced anything like that before. So it was very cool to see. All right. And then our last region that we came into was Galicia. And just in case you need to see that on a map, it's the little nub of Spain where our destination was, Santiago de Compostela. So in this region, this was like us coming out of the Meseta, and we were coming back into lush green forests, and we were getting pretty excited that we were getting closer and closer to the end, because this is like what we've been working for this whole time. So it was very cool to like be able to like get hyped up like that. And then what is it? In the bottom picture here in the middle, we actually got to meet two pilots and walk with them for about a week as well. And they were on vacation from like I think they said they flew with Spanish International or something like that. I forget the exact name, but like I said, there were two pilots just going on vacation, and it was so much fun to just eat with them, hear all the stories of where they've been, like all the craziness that came with the job and all that. So it was very cool. And then finally, as we were like coming up on Santiago, these were some of the pictures we took. The second middle, like top picture there with the giant tree, it was very cool because we were walking through like a very small town, and in the center of the town was this gigantic tree. And we found out that this is actually an 800-year-old tree that the residents around the town will actually like keep in good condition because it's been around for so long. So it was crazy to just like sit underneath the shade for it and be like, wow, this is awesome. And then we also climbed up some mountains as well, as you can see in the third picture there, in the last picture, called Alto de San Roque. And the altitude up there was about 1,270 meters. And we were coming up there and it was completely foggy. So you couldn't see like even a foot ahead of yourself. The only thing you could see was the railing kind of deal to make sure that you were going the right direction. So it was very interesting to walk through that as well. And as you can see also, there's the little monument letting the pilgrims know that you're entering Galicia and everything. And that's the kind of lush forest that we're in Galicia as well. But anyways, as we were coming up on Santiago, we were walking through the rural regions of Galicia, which surprisingly was a lot like Dover, Ohio. Like, as you can see in the picture there, it was like completely lush green deciduous trees, like just people like raising cattle and stuff like that. The only difference is they go across the street, as you can see there, which is kind of funny. So that was really, and like the lush farm fields as well on like the rolling hills. So it was really cool to see. And then finally, the picture in the middle, like the bottom middle of my uncle, cousin, and the pilgrim man there was actually very interesting because that guy in the neon green, he was actually about 70 years old. And as we were walking towards him, he was kind of like walking like very slowly, and we're like, oh, okay. So my uncle struck up a conversation with him and everything, and we found out that he actually started his journey from his front step in the Netherlands and just started walking all the way to Santiago in Spain. So it was about 2,000 kilometers to get there, and we found out that he was actually on his way back to his home in the Netherlands walking. So we were like astounded at that fact. We're like, holy crap, dude, that's insane. So it was very nice getting to just walk with him and learn everything that he had actually done the Camino 3 times before that as well. So he loved it so much that he wanted to start at his house instead of like start in Spain. So it was cool to see. And as you can see in this final picture too, we were only 108 kilometers away from Santiago. And these were the pictures of us getting closer and closer to Santiago as well. The first picture was actually a 200-year-old hostel that we stayed in, where the inside was completely redone and completely like updated. And the family who owned the house has owned it for generations and generations. So it was very cool to talk with them as well. And as you can see in the second picture here, we were walking through a forest of like older trees, and it looked something right out of like Lord of the Rings, like all the fog and like all the really old trees that kind of look like the Ents that like walk around. And so that was cool to see as well. And then as we were getting closer and closer, we actually stopped at a pulperia, which is an octopus shop. So they like serve up grilled octopus and everything like that. And we shared it with some friends from Ohio that we met along the way, as you can see in this bottom picture. It was really funny because we found out that they were actually, they had actually finished their seminary in Columbus. So they were studying to become Catholic priests, essentially. And they decided to go on the Camino as like a graduation gift, essentially, just to look at all the churches and monasteries that the Camino had to offer, and like go in and talk to the priests and everything like that. So it was really cool just getting to sit down and share octopus with them. And then finally, we made it to Santiago on July 26, 2015. And as I said earlier, we actually started on June 24th, 2015. And so it took us about a month to finish the whole thing. Now, that was because we were walking about 8 hours every day through, and we were like kind of booking it because my uncle only had so much vacation time. But it was really nice to be able to just see everything and like experience everything from the 4 different regions in Spain that the Camino went through. And as you can see, Nathaniel and I were more than happy to throw ourselves on the ground right before the cathedral and be like, we're done. So it was cool. And then in the 2 middle pictures, that's actually us going to a town called Fintera, which is at the very, very edge of like Spain. And it's like right on the Atlantic coast. And that was us just wanting to like go and experience like the Atlantic Ocean and check out everything kind of deal. But yeah, so once we finished the Camino de Santiago, I actually got, actually got my Compostela, which you can see here. It's very cool. They sign it for you and everything. And then like, this is like what you get at the very end of your trip. And how you get it is, you have a little Peregrino passport that you have that whenever you go to different like, what do you call it? Restaurants or hostels or everything like that. The people at the hostel or restaurant will actually stamp it for you like that. So, but at the end of your journey, you get a whole long list of different places that you've been. So you can look back in however many years and just see all the places that you got to stop and visit on your trip in the Camino. And this is actually the thing that when you get to Santiago, you show the people in the cathedral this, and they give you the Compostela that I just showed you. So it's absolutely fantastic to be able to have something like this in the Compostela at the very end to commemorate all the memories that I made along the way. But yeah, aside from that, that's the end of the presentation. So do you guys have any questions?
Okay, so now here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put everybody's face back up here. And if you have a question, unmute yourself, please, and ask away. All right. Or you could raise your hand. You know, if you get down in the little chat thing there, you can see the little reactions or whatever you want to do, just so you have. Mr. Schenkel, do you have a question or a comment?
Yes. What were the ages of your cousin and your uncle who went along with you?
My uncle at the time was in his 40s, and then my little cousin was about, let me think. I think he was around 10 or 12, like 10, somewhere between the ages of 10 and 12. So it was funny because my cousin at the very beginning, he did not he get like sick of walking for 8 hours. He's like, why do we have to walk for 8 hours? And he kind of just like whine and like throw himself on the ground and stuff like that. But then after the first week, he was like super into it because he's like, oh, there's so many new things. So it was really cool to see that transformation.
Yes, yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. Can
Yes,
you hear
Dan.
me?
Yeah,
Yes.
I can.
Can you still get your certificate if you don't walk all of it, but use a bus or a burro, a cow or something else, or a bicycle? Can you still get your certificate?
Yes, you can. I believe the minimum distance that you have to travel to the chapel is the distance from the city of Ponferrada that I talked about to Santiago. So that's the minimum distance you have to travel. It doesn't matter how you travel that distance or at the very start, like at Saint Pied de Port, so long as you have your passport and you have your starting point on your passport to know exactly where you started from, kind of deal.
Okay.
So
Just get a second class certificate if you do that.
no, they give you the same certificate.
Okay.
So how did you prepare? Because I know that you did some things before you went to prepare. How did you prepare for that?
At the time I was still doing soccer, so I didn't really have to prepare physically, but the way I prepared was more with my equipment. But I think would be a little more helpful for that question is the way my uncle prepared. He actually got his equipment like about a couple months early. He put it on and he'd go to the gym and fill it with like a bunch of stuff and go on that like stair climbing machine, and he would do that to like be able to like go up the mountains and stuff like that. And even though it was like kind of hard for us the first week in the mountains, after a while, all of us got used to it, even my uncle. So he was even though it seemed like he wasn't very prepared for it, he was prepared enough to be able to like keep going with it, kind of deal. So yeah.
Okay.
Couple quick questions. You mentioned in your thing in your gear that you had a pair of tennis shoes. That was an extra pair. In addition to hiking boots that you actually wore most of the time.
I actually wore the tennis shoes most of the time because I found it was a little better on my feet. Like after a while, because like if I wore my boots, it like leave me with a ton of blisters. So I was like, let's just put the tennis shoes on, and that actually worked a lot better for me. And surprisingly, I forget how much they costed, but what is it? The tennis shoes actually lasted me the whole trip. They were just a little smushed from walking so much, but after like a month of not walking in them, they went back to their normal shape. So that was very impressive.
You don't remember the brand?
No, I don't remember the brand. I just remember it was a very like good pair of tennis shoes. So it was probably a couple like $100, $150 kind of deal.
Dan will probably have to go to that shoe store in Canton called the Soul Purpose or something. The Soul.
Okay.
They have specialty shoes for runners and hikers.
There you go. Yeah.
What if you can't make it?
What if you can't do what?
Like, what if I start out like after I'm at my hostel for the evening and I get up at 5 in the morning and I'm walking. What if I run out of like energy? Like,
so you just like keel over on the side of the path? Is that what you're saying?
or stop and say I can't go anymore? Then what happens? Do you call the 911?
Yeah, the hope is that you'll call the emergency service and they'll come pick you up. But if your phone's dead, there's a lot of pilgrims in the summertime who walk, and like I said, they're like very nice. So I'm sure somebody would like come over and make sure that you're doing fine. Or if you're like passed out, they'll stay with you and like call for help.
Thank goodness, huh?
Yeah.
Oh my.
Our good friends hiked, I believe, in April, give or take, and they got through they were in a lot of cold rain.
Wow.
I don't suppose you had much rain.
There were times more in Galicia we got rain, but in the Meseta, no, we didn't really get any rain. But for that, what we did was in my lightweight backpack, it actually came with like a cover. So we were able to like put on our rain jackets or ponchos or whatever we brought, and then put the cover over our backpack and keep walking. But if it became too much, we would kind of just keep hiking until we found like a place to like stay and like have lunch or something like that. And we just go have lunch and wait for the rain to like settle down kind of deal.
What was the most awe-inspiring sight that you saw? I know there were a lot of beautiful things that you were able to witness, but what was the one thing that kind of stands out in your mind as being like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen on this trip?
The coolest thing I've ever seen on my trip. I'd probably definitely say it was that guy who walked from his house to Santiago. Because I was thinking like, wow, this is really hard, 500 or 800 kilometers or whatever. And then he told me that, and it just kind of shattered my point of view completely. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I'm 70 years old too. And we're like, what? So
Yeah, that would be really impressive. Really,
yeah,
really impressive.
definitely. But like I said, like as you're walking through it, all the scenery and everything like that is just absolutely stunning. So I definitely recommend it. Just even like what that sign said, just getting to Burgos, just so you can see all the mountain scenery and everything, is more than worth it. And also, my mom just sent me the type of shoes that I was wearing. They were Asus, and they were about $150. Asics, my bad.
Yeah, easy. No.
Good investment.
Yeah, definitely a good investment.
And didn't you tell me at school you had special socks that whisked
Special
away the sweat? Maybe not.
Maybe I don't remember the socks completely, but I'm sure I had a pair that had like something on the bottom so it wouldn't like rub my feet too much,
Yeah.
so I wouldn't get like little blisters and stuff. So
Yeah.
I think I might have, but I couldn't find like any of my clothing from the Camino at all. So I only found the Compostela in my passport thing. So
You didn't
Well,
get
those
any
are important.
blisters?
say again.
You didn't get any blisters on your feet?
Like I said, the first week I did, but then afterwards, no, not really, because I think what Cheryl said, I had special socks or something. I don't remember those, but I do remember the tennis shoes were really good. So yeah, it's good stuff.
Good stuff. What else do we want to know? Oh, when you the places that you stayed, did you have those reserved ahead of time, or did you just show up and walk around the town and see where a place there has?
Most of the time, I'm trying to think. I think we made the reservation the day of, like in the morning, and then we'd walk that far and then get there kind of deal. So then as we were kind of like, wait, I'm trying to think. So then like we'd make sure that we had somewhere to stay in the town. We go drop off our stuff and then just go look around the town kind of deal. So, but most places, if you get into the town, you can usually find a place to stay, whether it's like an albergue or a hostel or even a hotel. There's plenty of places usually that you could stay at. And that's another thing too. At the very beginning, we used to stay at the albergues because they were very cheap. And what those are, they're basically like communal places for the pilgrims to sleep. So like everybody who's walking on the trail sleeps in like all the guys sleep in the same room in bunk beds and stuff like that, and all the girls will sleep in the same room in bunk beds as well. It was a little hot for us because we weren't used to the heat, and they had like no air conditioning or anything. It was like the cheapest kind of sleeping place that you could sleep at. So my uncle decided, okay, we're going to start staying at hostels because in addition to it having like a nice room and like nice shower and everything like that, you also get to talk to the people who own the place because they're more than happy to just like sit down and talk to like pilgrims because they love hearing where you come from. They love hearing like how your day was and everything like that. So it's really cool.
Did the basic accents, Spanish accents, vary from the beginning of your trip to the end as you went across the country?
Yes, it did. When we were in the Nevada region, they had their own accent. When we were in the La Rioja region, they had their own accent. And then like I think the worst one was probably Galicia because they had a completely different dialect that they'll talk. And like my uncle couldn't understand them at all. So he had to wait for them to like talk Spanish to him until he was like, oh, okay. So, but like I said, most people speak at least like 3 languages out there. So if one person doesn't speak English, chances are you could probably find somebody who can speak English, kind of deal.
Well, I think that was just awesome. You know, the different regions, not
Mhm.
like you said, not only the language, but the culture, all of those regions were different, plus the geography. They were
Yeah.
mountains, then the meseta, then the, you know, then the plains. Just an amazing journey just across those 4 regions of Spain.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was also funny too because it reminded me. The regions reminded me. we sometimes meet people from Catalonia on the trip, and my uncle will be like, so he'd be talking about like something about Spain, and then the Catalonian guy will get really offended because he's like, "No, I'm not a Spaniard. I'm a Catalonian." And my uncle's like, "But Catalonia's in Spain." So it's that was another funny thing.
Yeah. Well, when I was researching for this, you know, for the press release that I sent out in 2019, pre-pandemic, 350,000 people walked the Camino de Santiago. Then, of course, I don't know how many people walked it during the pandemic, but this year, and we probably already missed our chance, you know, but it's the Jubilee, which means, what's that, 100 years? It's longer, it's older than that. So I don't understand. I wrote that, but I don't understand what, now that I think about it, the Camino's been there longer than 100 years.
Been there for a couple thousand.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's crazy. Well, not a couple thousand. That's an exaggeration. A couple hundred, I should say.
Yeah, right. Well,
Mhm.
a long time, let's just say.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Awesome.
Indeed.
Other questions, other comments?
Was there ever a time during your physical walking from place to place that you ever thought, what the heck am I doing? I'm done with this? Or was there any time where you had to kind of be re-inspired to keep going?
Yeah, definitely in the Meseta when it was like really hot and like we weren't really getting anywhere. We kind of get annoyed with one another. Like I'd get annoyed with my uncle, he'd get annoyed at me. We get annoyed at my cousin, kind of deal, and we'd walk like long distances between each other. So and just kind of like tune out everything. And it was definitely in those moments when I was like, why am I here? We're fighting. We're like, it's all falling apart, kind of deal. But then what was it? We come across like a different monument for the Peregrinos, or we'll come across a church and we'll be like, oh, that's kind of cool. And that's kind of cool, kind of deal. And then we'd have people to talk to as well. That wasn't just us 3. So that definitely helped a lot to like re-inspire us.
It sounds like not just you 3, but like other people were doing the same trip.
Mhm.
And when you got to communicate with them and find out where they were from,
Mhm.
you were kind of like excited about, well, you got re-excited about being on that venture and going out and doing the same thing as the other pilgrims. That sounds like it's like a journey of life. You know, you have all those moments of sometimes you just don't want to quit, and there are just moments where you just want to keep on going. And I like what you said about your cousin and how young he was, and how initially he's like, when he thinks about the task ahead, it's like, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going with my dad, I'm going with my cousin, got to keep doing it. But then once he got going, I'm sure his enthusiasm was helpful, hanging with him. I mean, because the young kid is, once they get excited about something, you just kind of ride their coattails for a long time. So that's where I'm at as a teacher with 30 plus years experience, is when I see those eyes light up, that keeps you going. When you don't get those moments as much, it's like, why am I here? Am I past my existence or my usefulness for this position? And just one of those things, I'm trying to make a connection between your journey and just the journey of teaching. It sounds very, very similar.
I think just in general in life, everybody's journey. But you know, when you said, Javier, about the meseta being kind of like purgatory, or did you say that about the fields and fields and fields, endless fields? And you can understand why Cervantes went crazy. You know, And that is our pilgrimage of life, right?
Mhm.
Meeting people along the way that help you carry the burden or the joy, different landscapes, different life experiences, and finding our way to the end, right? Which would be the end of our life, perhaps, or at least in this case, the end of a journey. But we're all on a journey, and we all come across. I mean, it's just, I have not done too much philosophical thinking about that, but it's pretty deep, I think.
There
People
you go.
always say that the Camino is like such a life-changing, introspective experience. So I can see why it would be.
If you walk it, you'll have more than enough
Can-
time to
can you
catch
hear
up
me?
on that philosophy.
Yeah. Yes, Dan. You're frozen, Dan.
Oh no.
Now he's frozen. Now, okay, now unmute yourself, Dan. Oh. Or Dan, maybe can you chat? Can you put what you want to? Oh, there you are. You're moving now. That's
Okay,
good.
so two quick things. So Javier, have you convinced Megan to go on a trip again? Has she done it also?
She has not, but when I was talking to her about it, like as I was making this presentation, she was like, "Oh, that sounds so fun! I'd love to do that." And she has my hat.
She's ready.
She when I went to get my backpack to like have it, she put it on and everything, and she's like, "All right, we're good to go." So she's definitely very excited.
So what you could do, Megan, just to practice, is to walk from your parents' house out to Dundee Falls and back and see how that goes.
I think now is a good time too with the heat. We better get on that. We got to capitalize on this.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
One other thing, I just finished an interesting book in a similar vein. It's called Pilgrimage to Eternity by Timothy Egan, a New York Times best-selling writer, but he took a pilgrimage that's obviously a centuries-old pilgrimage from Canterbury, England to Rome, which
Oh,
is
wow.
about 3 times, I think,
Yeah, we're having, you're cutting out. It's cutting out a little bit.
Yeah.
And now you're frozen again.
Oh no.
Timothy Egan, I'm reading a book by him now about a photographer from the early 1900s who photographed all of the Native American tribes and made a 20-volume book
Wow.
about that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. But the guy was very interested in documenting the lifestyle of those peoples before they were pushed off their land, or before the last ones were gone and the language and the culture had disappeared. So Timothy Egan must be I'm enjoying what I'm reading now, but he has some good ideas. So
Well, sounds very interesting though.
yeah, it does. Yeah. Well, I don't know if Dan and Jeanette, I was kind of watching to see if they're coming back on. I didn't see them, but anyway, I just wanted to thank you again, Javier, because when you went and then you came back, it was over the summer. So I really appreciate hearing some more details about your trip, and I think it was fabulous. And I dream about it, but I don't know how realistic I could be. I would probably take the bus a few places or hire someone to pick me up along the way or whatever, I don't know. But thanks everybody for tuning in tonight on our Zoom, and thanks Javier for putting this together for us. And now that you have it together, you could present it to other libraries, so.
That'd be
or
fun.
to other people, but because it's a fascinating presentation and you did a great job. So,
Thank you.
and thanks everybody for coming, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Although I hear thunder, so I'm thinking maybe we're going to get some well needed water, much needed water. But thanks everybody for coming in tonight. And thanks Javier and Megan for sharing your experience with us. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you.
everybody.